Okay, hi everyone. My name is John Shaffer. I'm the Associate Director for Graduate Student Success and Professional Development. And this is the virtual boot camp for the 3MT. And this program is sponsored by the Graduate School. As mentioned, the 3MT for this semester will be part of Graduate School Research Days, which all the programming for Graduate School Research Days will be virtual. So I'll be taking you through the concepts of the boot camp. So competition expectations, including guidelines, how the competition will be judged, and also submission instructions. We'll be talking about 3-minute presentation skills, 3MT virtual recording tips, and if time permitting, we'll break into some group discussions, and I have some questions posed for you that you can talk about in small groups and then come back. But again, that does have to do if we have time permitting at the end. So to talk about the guidelines for the 3MT, you must adhere to the following guidelines. And please keep in mind that for this semester, this will have to be, the guidelines are going to be incorporated into a video recording format. So first of all, a single static PowerPoint slide is permitted. No slide transitions, animations, or movement of any description. And the slide is to be presented from the beginning of when you all start talking. So to make it clear, a lot of people get confused with the PowerPoint piece. So we are asking for a PowerPoint slide, but only one. So it's not a PowerPoint presentation. It's not multiple slides. It is just one PowerPoint slide. No additional electronic media, including sound and video files, are permitted. No additional props, costumes, musical instruments, laboratory equipment are permitted. So even though you have the ability, or you will have the ability to record your session at home, we ask that you dress professionally and that you use no additional props. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes maximum, and competitors exceeding 3 minutes are disqualified. Now, in this case of recording, this is going to be a little bit easier for you because you're not going to be live up on a stage. You are going to be recording your 3MT presentation. So if you happen to record and you go over 3 minutes, of course, you can start over and do it again. Presentations are to be a spoken work, so no poems, raps, or songs. Presentations are to commence at the start of recording. Presentations are considered to have commenced when a presenter starts their presentation through speech. The decision of the adjudicating panel is final. So what are you going to be judged on? There are two sections. The first one is comprehension and content. So did the presentation provide an understanding of the background to the research question being addressed and its significance? Did the presentation clearly describe the key results of the research, including conclusions and outcomes? Did the presentation follow a clear and logical sequence? Was the thesis topic, key results, and research significance and outcomes communicated in a language appropriate to a non-specialist audience? I cannot stress this point enough. When you are putting together your 3MT presentation, you need to make sure that the language is accessible. The language to your research needs to be accessible to a wide audience. So, for example, I do not have a STEM background. So if you are, and I don't have backgrounds in anthropology. My background is in communication. My background is in higher education administration. So if you're talking about research in other disciplines, you need to make it accessible to me so that it is understandable. Did the speaker avoid scientific jargon, explain terminology, and provide adequate background information to illustrate points? And finally, did the presenters spend adequate time on each element of their presentation, or did they elaborate far too long on one aspect, or was the presentation rushed? So that's comprehension and content. The other piece that you'll be judged on is engagement. So did the oration make the audience want to know more? Was the presenter careful not to trivialize or generalize the research? I've never seen that point as a problem. Did the presenter convey enthusiasm for their research? We'll talk about enthusiasm and how to engage later in the presentation. Did the presenter capture and maintain their audience's attention? Did the speaker have sufficient stage presence, eye contact, and vocal range? Maintain a steady pace and have a confident demeanor. And then finally, for engagement, did the PowerPoint slide enhance the presentation? Was it clear, legible, and concise? We will also talk about best practices for putting together a PowerPoint slide. So the other judging will be actually by audience and community members. So general audience participants, so the UTSA community as a whole will be sent a link to view the various presentations. So your presentations, there'll be one link to view everything. General audience participants are asked to vote on who they thought gave the most convincing 3MT presentation. Details of the selection process will be provided to the audience via email, providing a link to view all submissions and a Qualtrics link to vote for their favorite. A finalist can be the winner or runner-up and still receive a People's Choice Award. Now here's the key, guys. Normally when we're in person, everyone votes in person. So the audience votes in person. So we have a captive audience, we give them a slip of paper normally, and they vote for whoever is their favorite. In this case, we'll be sending a link out, and we will be hoping that students, faculty, and staff at UTSA see, want to engage and view your presentations. What I would encourage you to do is in a sense double down. So when the email goes out with the link to view your 3MT presentations, make sure that you follow it up with faculty, classmates, even family members and friends to drive people to the site to view your submissions. So for your slide submission, you, as mentioned before, you will create one single static PowerPoint slide. You will upload the slide formatted as a JPEG. 72 pixels per inch, 27 inches by 18 inches. The deadline is Monday, September 28th. You will be sent an upload link when you register, and that email will be coming out shortly from the graduate school. Presentations will be preloaded for judges and UTSA community to view. Now, all this information will also be on the page for registration information, so you'll get it. You're not just getting it here, you'll receive these instructions in the email from the graduate school. So again, presentations will be preloaded for judges and UTSA community to view. So the slide submission is one piece. The other piece is the video submission. The reason why we're doing both, and you may wonder, well, why am I submitting my slide and then a video with my slide? So the reason is on a video recording, when the judges are viewing the sessions or your session, it may be difficult to really see the slide depending on where they're viewing it, or if they're viewing it on their phone or on a tablet. So really what they're going to be listening to is, with the video recording, is they're going to be listening to you speaking, even though your slide will be part of your recording. So we want to do the slide submission as well, so that they can take a closer view at the slide that you're using as part of your presentation. So you will record an MP4 presentation using Zoom with a speaker window. Please do not, we want to make sure everyone's submission is consistent. So we want everybody to use Zoom, excuse me, with the speaker window open, because we want the judges and anybody else viewing your submissions to see you. That's part of the, that is part of the judging criteria. So they do need to see you. So make sure that speaker window is open. Upload your MP4 to a personal YouTube channel. Easy to create. I created one for myself recently. Very easy to create your own YouTube channel. It's free. So once you have uploaded it to YouTube, to your YouTube channel, make sure that it's public, and then submit the 3MT YouTube link during competition registration. The deadline is Monday, September 28th, as the same as your slide submission. Presentations will be preloaded for judges and the UTSA community to view. So the judging itself will take place September 29th through October 8th, and the judges will submit their scores via Qualtrics. We could have as many as 20 judges viewing your recordings. Everything will be objective because it will be, because the scores are, like I said, they have a rubric and they will base their scores on the rubric. If you win, first place is $1,000, second place is $750, third place is $500, and then People's Choice is $250. Winners will be announced on October 14th during a virtual awards recognition, and there'll be more information to come. Currently, we're looking at either a 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. time frame or a 4:30 to 5 p.m. time frame to do a virtual awards recognition, not only for the 3MT, but we will also be doing poster presentations, a poster presentation competition as part of graduate school research days. So doing a 3MT is very similar to an elevator pitch. It is a brief, persuasive speech. It's used to spark interest in a research project, a research idea, or a product. 3MT speech tips, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail on some of these, is first of all, be prepared. Now, the nice part is as we've discussed, because this is virtual, you have plenty of time to perfect your presentation as far as your recording. So that's a leg up that you all have that maybe that other previous years students doing the 3MT did not have. We want you to be concise. You don't want to go off on tangents. You want to make sure to stay to the story you're telling, however you want to tell it, but make sure to be concise because you only have 3 minutes. And with a lot of you with your research, you have a lot of information to cover, but a very short period of time. So if you look at number 8, be creative in the way you're presenting your material. Speak simply and genuinely. Obviously, simply, as I discussed, you are having to make your research information accessible to a very wide audience. And then, of course, genuinely, you want the people viewing your videos to kind of trust in what you're saying. Excuse me, just need a little bit of water. Trust in what you're saying. And comprehend what you're saying. You also want to consider how you're going to grab the listener's attention, which again, I'm going to go into some of these in a little bit more detail, talking about presentation strategies, public speaking strategies. So you want to grab your listener's attention, possibly ask some qualifier questions. Tailor your pitch to the audience, which again, going back to speaking simply, tailoring your pitch is to a very wide audience, making your research information accessible. Telling a consistent story. One thing, and 7 and 8 go very closely together, being creative to tell a consistent story. You want to challenge yourself, or I want to challenge you to talk about your research and tell a story about your research in the most creative, out-of-the-box way possible. The more out of the box in how you present your research, honestly, the better chance you have at winning. Because it's all about, this is as much a public speaking competition as it is a research competition. So let's talk about your speech, your talk. First impressions are extremely important. When someone clicks on that video to view, you want to come up on the screen looking extremely confident, not shy, not nervous. And again, you'll be able to practice, but you want to start off with a bang. This goes back to how are you going to grab the viewers or listeners' attention? Start off with a bang. You really can't take too much time to warm up because again, you only have 3 minutes. So what are you going to say at the beginning of your video to really grab a person's attention and make them, you really ultimately with a qualifier question or with a really engaging beginning to your video is you want to make the audience want to know more. That's the goal. You want them to think, you know what, I really want to listen to this for the next two minutes and 40 seconds. So figure that out. Again, this is about being creative. Building a rapport. Obviously, in this situation where you're recording, there's less of that, but because you don't have a live audience. But if you start out with some type of bang or qualifier question, you will immediately build a rapport because as an audience member, they're listening to you, the speaker, and they really are wanting to listen to more of what you have to say. You have to speak with conviction, again, clearly, confidently, concisely. When you're doing a webinar, a video recording, or a live in person, you have to speak as if you believe in what you're talking about. So you have to sound not only interesting in the way that you're talking, but also very interested in the topic. Now, you have to dig deep when you're presenting. So many of you, the majority of you, if not all of you, are very passionate about the research you're conducting. If you weren't, you would not be in graduate school. So tap into that. Tap into that love, that interest that you have in your research, and make sure that comes out on screen or in person. Remember, when you're speaking and you're speaking with conviction, you are the expert. So you have to speak as if you not only believe, but that you know. You are the expert. People are listening to you as the expert in your area of research. So bad habits, such as nervous habits, might show up less on a video. So anything physical is going to show up less. So, and here I said, watch the use of placeholders, and I just said or But physical things, such as if you twiddle your fingers, if you maybe play with a pen, like none of that stuff is going to show up on screen because right now everything is from chest up. So those aren't issues. If you know you have some nervous habits when you present, most of the physical ones are not going to show up on camera. But the ones that will show up are the use of placeholders, the you know, and like. The best way to reduce those obviously is practice, but then also not rushing. What happens when we put in placeholders we're talking faster than our brain can process what the next words are going to be. So we're just quickly talking, and we lose our place. We have to think about what's next, and so we use a placeholder. If you slow down and you practice small pauses to give yourself a chance to think, then continue to move forward. And then just simply be aware of any nervous habits. I know we have all seen people with nervous habits, whether that be playing with their hair, or you definitely don't want to be cracking your knuckles on camera with audio. That's going to be a distraction. So just be aware of those nervous habits. Practice. If you don't need to, in this case of a virtual recording, you don't need to practice necessarily just the 3MT. simply practice talking on screen. Practice recording yourself. Practice talking about yourself. Then review it, see how it looks, and then anything that you see is a distraction or is a bad habit that you see, then just work on it for the next time and then record yourself again is the best way to do it. Throughout your presentation, of course, engaging your audience is different with this type of virtual scenario, but you do, and we'll talk about best ways to engage when I have some virtual tips for you for recording, but you definitely want to continue to make direct eye contact with the camera, which means you're not going to have a script. We want this to sound organic, not robotic. You're telling a story. So a story isn't always scripted. Now, of course, because it's 3 minutes, in a sense, it will be scripted, but you won't necessarily say it the same exact way every time you practice and then when you actually do your final recording. Make it sound organic is the best way to engage. Be the best version of yourself on camera. And like I said, make direct eye contact, refrain from having notes in front of you, because this is what's going to happen. If you have notes, then you're going to end up looking down at your notes and you're not looking at the camera. You see what's happening now? That's not a good way to engage. So there's going to be some form of memorization, but it would be the same if you were doing the 3MT live in person. It's going to be some form of memorization, but you want to sound relaxed, conversational, and organic when you do your 3MT recording. I always put this in for any type of presentation skills. Appropriate humor. So, as I said, you want to be the best version of yourself. And when you're giving any type of presentation, not just virtual, any type of presentation, adding appropriate humor, if that's part of who you are, as long as the humor lends itself to the topic and doesn't detract from it, only, if humor enhances your presentation, then I would say include it. Now, this is not a stand-up comedy routine. This is a research competition. So you can add in humor, but make sure that it's relatable. Let's talk about your slide. So we're asking that you use PowerPoint because you have to be able to save the slide as a JPEG to upload, and then you also will be using it as part of your recording. But always remember, in the 3MT competition and in general, when you're giving presentations, whatever software you're using, in this case it will be PowerPoint, it's a visual aid. Emphasis on the word aid. It will help to get your message across and achieve the objective of the presentation. That's the goal. You can consider pictures or graphs. It does not have to be a slide like what you're seeing in front of you now. Does not even have to have words on it, not for this competition. But you always want to remember the PowerPoint slide, the presentation, utilizing Prezi, Panopto, any type of those softwares, visual aid softwares. Always remember that you, the speaker, are the presentation. The software, the presentation software are like your backups. It's like your backup singer. It's there to support you, but you are the presentation. This is an example of a slide that you could use to submit. If you look at this slide, it will create a lot of thoughts, ideas, such as leadership, soaring to new heights, the plight of the American bald eagle, Alaska, the new frontier. Not to say this is Alaska, but it sure looks like it could be Alaska. Alaska, the new frontier. But so many ideas are supported by a simple image. And throughout the years I've done the host of the 3MT competition, there have been times where the slides that were the most impactful were the ones that said very little. Because again, going back to, remember, you are the presentation. The slide is going to support the material you're presenting about your research or your project. So here's some virtual tips. First of all, when you do your final recording, make sure you have very good lighting and a noise-free environment. Make sure someone isn't mowing the lawn. Make sure that dogs aren't barking, that children, if you have kids, that they're not saying, I'm hungry, I want lunch, so make sure you have good lighting, great lighting, and a noise-free environment. I highly recommend use a laptop with camera and audio capabilities. Recording cannot exceed 3 minutes. This goes back to the requirements, the guidelines for the 3MT competition. The recording has to end at 3 minutes or before. It doesn't have to go all the way to 3 minutes, but it needs to stop at 3 minutes. Use Zoom, as I mentioned before. We are requiring you to use Zoom. As a student at UTSA, you have access to Zoom and can log in, I believe, with your email and passphrase. So use Zoom screen share to share your one static slide and keep your speaker window open. So make sure that speaker window remains open. When you do, I was thinking, what does that last point mean, even though I wrote this? So professional on the top, and as long as you're not standing up and we're not looking at you in a full, which you shouldn't be, you should be sitting in front of your computer when you record this. So professional on top, and we don't care what's on the bottom because all we can see is chest up. The recommendation, we don't want you to be too close. This distance is good where you're looking like chest and up. Make sure your head's not getting cut off. Make sure you have an appropriate background. That's another thing that I meant to include. Make sure you have a background. Do not have your bed in the background. Look for someplace nice. It doesn't have to be solid, empty wall, but as long as it looks nice behind you, it's clean, it's clear of clutter, and looks professional. Obviously on Zoom, you have the option to use different backgrounds to block yourself out. That's fine too. So some other virtual tips. So we'll talk, there's challenges and then there's some luxuries you all have. The challenges are when you're recording and you're by yourself. So basically you're just like I am right now. You're speaking to a computer. I know there's people listening, but I can't see you. I can't hear you. I can't pull off that energy of seeing people. So when you're recording into a computer, the challenge is to maintain a high level of engagement and enthusiasm. And how are you going to do that? And we talked about that before, starting out with a bang, continuing to engage the audience, even though you don't have a live audience, you need to record thinking that you do have a live audience. Again, don't read your slide. Don't do what I'm doing. This is going to be a 3-minute presentation. You need to make sure that the information, you've practiced it, you're able to recite it, and it sounds, again, organic, not scripted. Now, the luxuries that you all have, and I was talking about this with a student this morning, and I think he actually might be on here right now, is one of the luxuries you have is no live audience. So those of you that have a fear of public speaking, you have public speaking anxiety, you are getting off scot-free because you do not have to get up in front of a group of people. Sometimes we've had 100 or more view the 3MT competition. You don't have to get up in front of a group of people. You're only, in a sense, recording to yourself. I mean, obviously you're recording to an audience, but you can't see that audience. So the fear of public speaking is kind of set aside. And the ability to start over. I mean, you can take as many, you can start over. You can do as many do-overs as you want. Take 20, you know, I mean, it's as many do-overs as you want till it's perfect. We will not be doing the 3MT virtually from here on out. As soon as we're able to come back together, this competition will go back to its, you know, live in person. So take advantage of the fact that you guys have a leg up, in a sense, on previous years and subsequent years when people will be participating in the 3MT. But again, the biggest challenge, I think, is maintaining a high level of engagement and enthusiasm when you are sitting in a room talking to yourself. Right now, it's me, and to my left is my cat. And those are the only people I'm talking to right now. I mean, I know you're there, but I can't see you. So the other nice piece about this, like, first of all, participating in the boot camp and then participating in the 3MT, is you have the opportunity to earn a micro-credential badge through the graduate school. So the graduate school has started a new program called GPS, which is Graduate and Postdoctoral Success. Part of that program is micro-credential badges. So for the boot camp and then the subsequent 3MT competition, if you attend this boot camp, you participate in the 3MT, you will be issued a micro-credential badge that is for the 3-minute thesis. Now, what does a badge do? It's basically a skill set earned, and the 3-minute thesis falls under our oral presentation skills. So these can be placed on your LinkedIn, on resumes, but that you earned a badge or that you earned a micro-credential in oral presentation skills. But really, you can incorporate it into your LinkedIn profile. So that's a nice added benefit